Princess Lyra stood on the highest balcony of the Andari Palace, her violet eyes scanning the horizon. Beyond the glass domes of her city, the twin suns were beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the floating towers and crystal spires. Everything about her world was orderly, beautiful, and safe. At least that was what she had always believed. But Lyra's mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about the stories her nursemaid had told her as a child, stories of humans. Humans were strangers from another star system, creatures of flesh and blood who possessed strength, courage, and cunning unlike any Andari. According to legend, a single human fighter could take on dozens of alien soldiers and emerge victorious. Her advisors dismissed the stories as fairy tales, just meant to entertain children, and yet every time Lyra closed her eyes she could picture it. A human standing alone against a horde of enemies, unafraid, precise, unstoppable. The image fascinated her. Humans were supposed to be myths, yet somehow Lyra felt a pull toward them, a sense that there was truth hidden in the tales. "Your Highness," said a soft voice behind her. Lyra turned to see her personal guard, Captain Varric, bowing slightly. "The council meets in 10 cycles. They wish to discuss the border raids." Lyra nodded, her attention reluctantly returning to her royal duties. The border colonies had always been vulnerable. Rogue mercenary groups, pirates, and alien raiders tested the limits of the Andari military. Usually these attacks were small and easily repelled by the Empire's soldiers. But rumors had spread of a new mercenary leader, someone dangerous and cunning moving among the outer worlds. "I want a full report before the council," Lyra said, her voice steady but her heart racing. "I need to understand the scale of the threat." Varric bowed again and left. Alone, Lyra returned her gaze to the horizon. She imagined what it would be like to see a human with her own eyes. Could they really be as capable as the legends said? Could a human truly survive in a war-torn galaxy of advanced alien empires and deadly creatures? The council chamber was a grand room filled with holographic displays and alien architecture. Lyra's father, Emperor Kale, presided at the head of the table. His long silver robes shimmered in the light as he addressed the gathered advisors. "Reports indicate the raids are increasing in frequency and organization," said General Tarek, a tall, muscular Andari with a scar across his face. "If the mercenaries are not stopped, border colonies will fall. The Empire must act." Lyra listened carefully, noting the concern in the room. The Andari were skilled, but their pride sometimes blinded them to innovation. She remembered the human stories again and wondered, what would a human do in this situation? "We will send reinforcements," her father said. "Our soldiers are strong and our technology is unmatched. We need only to respond with force." Lyra frowned. Responding with force alone might not be enough. The human legends always spoke of strategy, courage, and improvisation, not just brute strength. She quietly wondered if Andari arrogance might be a weakness. After the council meeting, Lyra retired to her private chambers. She paced the room, thinking. Her chambers overlooked the northern border, where the raids had been reported. She could see the distant mountains and forests, untouched, yet under threat. The idea of watching her people suffer while waiting for the next attack made her uneasy. "Perhaps it is time I see the humans for myself," she murmured. The words felt strange, almost forbidden. Royals were not supposed to venture to dangerous territories alone, especially not into war zones. But curiosity burned in her heart. The stories had planted a seed that demanded answers. 2 days later, Lyra disguised herself as a common traveler and boarded a small scout vessel heading toward the border colonies. She took only a few attendants, ensuring secrecy. Her advisors believed she was attending a ceremonial inspection, unaware of her real intentions. The journey through space was tense. Lyra studied the navigational charts and sensors carefully, noting the scattered colonies and the paths the mercenaries might take. As they neared the outer systems, the crew reported unusual energy signatures, ships moving fast, silent, and deadly. Lyra's pulse quickened. Could this be the human she had been hoping to see? The vessel landed on a small colony under attack. Smoke rose from the buildings, and the air was thick with tension. Soldiers fired at invisible targets, and the people cowered in fear. Lyra's heart sank. She had never witnessed destruction firsthand. Then she saw him. A lone figure moved among the chaos, striking with precision, agility, and calm that seemed impossible. He dodged blaster fire, disarmed attackers, and rescued colonists without hesitation. The human's small frame contrasted with his incredible power and speed. Every move was calculated, efficient, and fearless. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. This was no legend. This was real. Who is that?" she whispered. "That," said one of her attendants, eyes wide, "is a human fighter. His name is Captain Nathan. They say no one can match him in combat." Lyra's mind raced. Everything she had imagined as a child, every story she had secretly believed, was true, and now she was seeing it firsthand. Nathan moved through the battlefield with calm authority. He rescued a family trapped in a collapsing building and led them to safety. Then, without hesitation, he turned to face a group of raiders who had cornered him. His stance was relaxed, yet every movement radiated deadly precision. Lyra felt a strange mixture of awe and fear. She had always believed Andari warriors were supreme, yet here was a human defying every expectation, demonstrating courage and skill beyond anything she had imagined. The battle ended quickly. Nathan stood alone among the survivors, unscathed. He helped rebuild the colony defenses and organized a counterattack that drove the mercenaries away. Lyra watched silently, hidden in the shadows. She realized the stories had underestimated humans. They were not only strong and brave, they were clever, disciplined, and compassionate. That night, Lyra could not sleep. She replayed the day's events over and over in her mind. Captain Nathan was a living legend, and he had proven it in front of her eyes. She understood now why the stories persisted. They were true, but even the stories could not capture the full extent of human capability. The next morning, Lyra made a decision. She would meet Nathan. She would speak with him, learn from him, and perhaps, if he trusted her, see the galaxy through human eyes. Her attendants protested, warning her of the dangers. But Lyra's curiosity was stronger than fear. She had spent her entire life in comfort and safety, yet the thought of the unknown of human courage called to her. She would not ignore it. As the sun rose over the colony, Lyra approached the central plaza where Nathan was helping rebuild shelters. She stepped forward, heart pounding, and called out, "Captain Nathan?" He turned, scanning the crowd. Then, his eyes met hers. There was a moment of recognition, not surprise, but an understanding that she was someone of importance. His calm demeanor never wavered. "Yes?" he asked, voice steady. Lyra bowed slightly, a gesture of respect from her. "People, I am Princess Lyra of the Andari Empire. I came to see the truth of the human stories, and now I see it with my own eyes." Nathan studied her, then smiled faintly. "Stories often exaggerate, but the truth is, humans can surprise you." Lyra felt a thrill of excitement. For the first time in her life, she was on the edge of discovery, about to step into a world larger than her palace, larger than her people, and larger than the legends she had believed. In that moment, Princess Lyra understood something fundamental. Humans were not just myths, they were real. And if she wanted to protect her people and truly understand the universe, she would need to learn from them. Princess Lyra followed Captain Nathan through the ruins of the small colony, her steps careful yet full of curiosity. Smoke still lingered in the air, and the scent of scorched metal and burned wood filled her nose. For the first time, Lyra truly understood the cost of war. The Andari Empire had always been safe within its walls, protected by technology and discipline. Here she saw chaos, fear, and courage in equal measure. Nathan moved with purpose, checking on the survivors, giving calm instructions. He carried himself like someone who had faced danger countless times. Each decision he made was precise and practical. Yet there was a humanity to it that impressed Lyra. He didn't just fight. He cared. "You're different from what I imagined," Lyra said quietly, keeping her distance. She watched him as he helped a small group of children climb out of a half-collapsed building. Nathan glanced at her but did not stop. "Different how?" he asked, his voice calm but curious. "You're fearless. And yet you protect people, not just fight for glory." "That is not typical of warriors in my world," Lyra said, trying to choose her words carefully. Nathan shrugged lightly. "Fear doesn't go away. You just decide not to let it control you. Protecting others, that's the important part." Lyra studied him, noting the way his eyes scanned the area, always alert, always calculating. He was strong, but not reckless. Brave, but thoughtful. Everything the legends had claimed about humans seemed true, and yet, seeing it firsthand made it even more real. As the day wore on, Nathan finished organizing the survivors into temporary shelters. Lyra followed him quietly, still unsure how to approach him. She wanted to speak more, but her royal training made her cautious. "Princess Lyra," Nathan said suddenly, as if reading her mind. "You've been following me. Why?" Lyra froze, unsure how to answer. She had intended to observe to see if humans were truly as the stories described. But now that she had been caught, honesty seemed both risky and necessary. "I wanted to see the truth," she admitted. "The stories of humans are everywhere in my world. Some say you are myths, but I see now, you are real. I wanted to understand." Nathan considered her words, then nodded. "Truth is often stranger than stories. Come with me. If you want to understand, you need to see more than the battlefield." He led her to a small makeshift command center he had set up in a reinforced building. Inside, maps of the surrounding area covered the walls and holographic markers showed the positions of enemy forces and survivor shelters. Lyra's eyes widened. This human had not only fought the raiders, he had organized defenses, coordinated rescues, and planned counterattacks. "Impressive," she said softly. "My people have strategy, yes, but this is different." Nathan smiled faintly. "Different how?" "Efficient, flexible. You adapt instantly to changing situations. You think beyond rules, beyond pride. That is rare among the Andari." Nathan leaned back, studying her. "Adaptation is survival. Humans have learned to survive in harsh conditions. You have plenty of rules and discipline, which is useful, but sometimes it slows decisions. Humans can improvise. Sometimes that makes the difference between life and death." Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing every word. She had grown up believing that Andari discipline and technology made them the strongest. Yet here was a human, standing in a crumbling colony, commanding with nothing but instinct, intelligence, and courage. A sudden alarm interrupted her thoughts. Sensors detected movement in the surrounding forests. Lyra froze. "Are they coming back?" Nathan quickly analyzed the data. "Not them, but we have company. A small group of mercenaries scouting the area. They might have seen us." Lyra's heart raced. She had never been in a real fight before, not in her life. And yet, standing beside Nathan, she felt a strange confidence. He moved with calm precision, checking weapons, signaling to the few trained soldiers they had. "Stay close," he said, noticing her hesitation. "Follow my lead. You can watch, learn, and stay safe." Lyra nodded. She trusted him, though she did not fully understand why. There was something about humans, something that drew her in, that inspired her. She felt an unfamiliar excitement, a thrill that only came from being on the edge of danger. The mercenaries approached under the cover of trees. Nathan moved swiftly, using the terrain to his advantage. He set traps and guided Lyra to a concealed vantage point. She watched as he engaged the enemy, dodging attacks, disarming opponents, and striking with precise efficiency. Lyra gasped. Each move was calculated yet fluid, almost like a dance. He was not just fighting, he was reading the battlefield, predicting moves, and adapting instantly. The mercenaries tried to surround him, but he stayed one step ahead, using the environment and his wits. Finally, Nathan stood among the defeated mercenaries unscathed. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. No Andari soldier could move like that. Humans truly were different, strong, clever, and fearless. After the skirmish, Nathan approached Lyra. "You saw enough?" he asked, his tone casual but edged with curiosity. Lyra nodded, still catching her breath. "More than I imagined. I want to learn from you." Nathan studied her carefully. "Learn? About fighting?" "Yes. About humans. About courage. About survival. I want to understand what makes your people exceptional." Nathan chuckled. "You're bold for a princess. Most of your kind would never admit that humans have something to teach them." Lyra's cheeks flushed slightly. "Perhaps most of my kind are too proud. I only want to protect my people. If humans have skills and strategies that can help, I want to learn them." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "All right. But learning isn't easy. Humans don't just teach from books. You'll need to train, to face fear, to think fast. Are you ready for that?" Lyra's gaze hardened. "I am." Over the next few days, Nathan taught Lyra more than just combat skills. He taught her how to move silently, how to read an opponent, how to use the environment to her advantage. Lyra quickly realized that her people's rigid training sometimes limited creativity. Nathan encouraged her to think, adapt, and make decisions in real time. Lyra struggled at first. Her movements were precise, but stiff. She hesitated when improvisation was required. But Nathan was patient, correcting her calmly, encouraging her to trust her instincts. Slowly, she began to improve. She was not yet ready to fight alongside him, but she was learning. During breaks, they spoke of their worlds. Lyra shared stories of the Andari Empire, its technology, and her life in the palace. Nathan spoke of humanity, of their resilience, their ability to survive harsh environments, and their unity in the face of danger. Lyra found herself fascinated. Humans were not just warriors. They were thinkers, innovators, and deeply compassionate. One evening, as the twin suns set over the horizon, Lyra and Nathan stood on a ridge overlooking the colony. The air was quiet, the fires of the battle long extinguished. "Captain Nathan," Lyra said softly, "I have never seen anyone like you. You inspire confidence, not just in battle but in people. How do you do it?" Nathan looked out over the valley, thoughtful. "Humans survive because we have to. We've faced impossible odds before. But we also protect each other, care for each other. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Anyone can do that if they choose to." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that this was not just about fighting. This was about leadership, about understanding, about inspiring hope. Humans were not perfect, but they were extraordinary in ways she had never imagined. Suddenly, alarms blared from the colony. Another scout ship had detected movement, larger this time. Nathan's expression hardened. "Looks like the main force is coming. We need to prepare." Lyra's pulse quickened. This was no longer practice or training, this was real danger. But she did not step back. She felt ready, because she was not alone. Nathan had shown her what humans were capable of, and now, she would face the challenge alongside him. As night fell over the colony, the princess and the human fighter stood together, watching the horizon. The enemy approached, but for the first time, Lyra felt hope. Not just for herself, but for her people. Humans were not myths. They were real, and they were allies. The battle for the border colonies was about to begin, and Lyra would learn firsthand what it truly meant to fight beside a human. The morning sun bathed the border colony in soft golden light. Smoke from the previous skirmish still lingered, but life had returned slowly. Survivors repaired their homes, children played cautiously in the streets, and the soldiers Nathan had trained, moved with newfound confidence. Lyra watched quietly from a small ridge, her violet eyes fixed on him. Since meeting Nathan, she had learned more than she ever imagined. She had trained, observed, and adapted in ways that her palace lessons had never allowed. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. Humans were unpredictable, inventive, and relentless in their methods. She wanted to absorb every lesson, to understand how they thought, how they fought, and how they survived. Nathan approached, carrying a simple pack filled with supplies. "Ready for today?" he asked. Lyra straightened. "Yes. What will we do?" Nathan smiled faintly. "Today we learn the human way of planning. Combat is not just about strength, it's about anticipation, adaptation, and cooperation. I'll show you how to read your environment, predict your enemy, and make split-second decisions." Lyra nodded eagerly. She had always excelled in strategy, but her methods were rigid, bound by tradition and protocol. Nathan's way was different. It was fluid, creative, and instinctive. They moved through the ruins, using shadows and debris as cover. Nathan pointed out small details, a bent piece of metal indicating recent movement, footprints hidden in ash, the direction of a scavenger drone that might report their presence. Lyra followed, absorbing every observation. "You see these signs?" Nathan asked. An Andari soldier might overlook them, thinking they are minor. But in real combat, details like this can mean the difference between life and death. Humans survive because we notice everything. Lyra squinted, trying to see what he meant. Slowly, she began to understand. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about awareness, perception, and adapting to every tiny change. They reached a small clearing, and Nathan handed her a training weapon, similar to those used in actual combat but non-lethal. "Your reflexes are good," he said, "but your timing needs work. Humans don't just strike. They anticipate, react, and improvise. Watch carefully." He moved with astonishing speed, striking and dodging with fluid precision. Lyra tried to mimic his movements but faltered, her body stiff and hesitant. Nathan corrected her stance patiently, guiding her hands, feet, and focus. "Relax," he said. "Don't think of it as following a set path. Think of it as responding. Feel the rhythm, anticipate the next move, and trust yourself." Lyra closed her eyes for a moment and tried to clear her mind. Slowly, she began to move more freely, her strikes flowing naturally. Nathan nodded approvingly. "Better. You're learning. Humans are not just about strength, they rely on flexibility and instinct." Hours passed in intense training. Sweat dripped from Lyra's brow, muscles ached, and yet she felt exhilarated. Every movement, every adjustment brought her closer to understanding the human way. After a brief rest, Nathan shared stories of human history and survival. He spoke of people who had faced starvation, hostile planets, and hostile species, yet survived through cleverness, courage, and teamwork. Lyra listened, captivated. Humans were more than fighters. They were adaptable, resilient, and united by a sense of purpose. "You see," Nathan said, "humans can be ordinary in comfort, but extraordinary in challenge. That is why people tell stories about us. Not because we are invincible, but because we never give up. We keep going when others would falter." Lyra absorbed the words. She realized that her people often relied too much on technology and tradition. Andari warriors were disciplined, yes, but sometimes inflexible. Humans had a spark, an ability to innovate and adapt, that made them formidable. Their training was interrupted by urgent reports. Scout drones had detected increased activity near the colony's outskirts. A small band of raiders, likely scouts for a larger force, were approaching. Nathan glanced at Lyra. "Ready?" Her pulse quickened. This was real, not practice. "Yes," she said, gripping her weapon tightly. They moved quickly through the ruins, hiding behind walls and debris. Lyra followed Nathan's instructions, noting every detail, every movement, every sound. When the raiders appeared, they struck with speed and precision, using traps and tactical positioning. Lyra was nervous, but she acted decisively, anticipating Nathan's moves and protecting civilians. The skirmish ended quickly. The raiders were neutralized, either captured or driven off. Lyra's chest heaved with exertion and adrenaline. Nathan clapped her shoulder. "Well done. You're improving fast. Humans learn by doing, by facing danger head-on. That is the human way." Lyra smiled, pride swelling in her chest. She was learning more than combat skills. She was learning courage, decisiveness, and trust. She began to see how humans thought, how they adapted, and why they were admired across the galaxy. Later, as night fell, they returned to the temporary command center. Lyra could hear the distant cries of those rebuilding and the quiet hum of energy shields. She realized that humans did not wait for problems to come. They anticipated, adapted, and acted. That was the lesson Nathan was teaching her. But learning, the human way was not without challenges. Some Andari soldiers were suspicious of her sudden interest in human methods. Whispered rumors reached the palace through secret channels. A princess seen training with a human, listening to his strategies, even acting independently. Political intrigue was a constant threat, and Lyra knew that if her advisors discovered too much, she could face consequences. Nathan noticed her concern. "You're worried about politics," he said. "Humans face politics too. You have to balance trust, action, and caution. Learn when to act openly and when to wait. That is part of survival." Lyra nodded. She understood. The galaxy was more complicated than she had realized. Combat was only one aspect. Leadership, trust, and timing were just as crucial. Humans seemed to navigate this naturally, combining instinct, logic, and courage in perfect balance. Over the next few days, Lyra trained relentlessly. Nathan introduced her to tactics that combined strategy with improvisation. She learned to read enemy behavior, predict movements, and coordinate small groups of soldiers effectively. Slowly, the Andari soldiers began to notice her skills improving. They saw her thinking differently, moving differently, acting differently. Some were skeptical, but others were intrigued. One afternoon, Lyra and Nathan tested her new skills in a simulated battle. Using a small group of trainees, they faced off against a team of raiders in a controlled environment. Lyra led her team, using human-inspired tactics, anticipating the enemy's moves, and adapting in real time. The results were impressive. The trainees executed the plan flawlessly, and the simulation ended in a decisive victory. Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had not only learned new skills, but had also inspired her people to think differently. Humans were not just fighters. They were teachers, innovators, and catalysts for change. That night, as Lyra and Nathan watched the stars from the ridge, she spoke quietly. "I never realized how much I had to learn. Humans, you are extraordinary. Not just in strength, but in thought, action, and courage. You have changed the way I see everything." Nathan smiled faintly. "You're learning quickly. That is the human way. Observe, adapt, and act. But remember, it's not just about skill. It's about courage, trust, and determination. That is what makes humans, humans." Lyra's heart swelled. She understood now that strength alone did not define greatness. It was the combination of courage, adaptability, and the willingness to face the unknown that truly mattered. Humans embodied all of these qualities, and she was determined to bring those lessons back to her people. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, Lyra made a silent promise to herself. She would continue learning, continue growing, and continue challenging the assumptions of her world. Humans were not myths. They were real, extraordinary, and a source of inspiration. The next challenge would be greater than training or small skirmishes. The main force of raiders loomed on the horizon, and the colony, her people, and her newfound human ally would soon face a trial that would test everything they had learned. Lyra felt a mixture of fear and excitement. But unlike before, she did not feel helpless. She had learned the human way. She had courage, strategy, and determination. And she had Nathan, an extraordinary human warrior who had opened her eyes to a new way of thinking. The battle for the border colonies was coming, and Princess Lyra was ready to face it, not just as a princess but as a student of the human way. The sky above the border colony was dark with approaching warships. Lyra stood at the edge of the ridge, her violet eyes scanning the horizon. Smoke from previous attacks still lingered, but this time the threat was far larger. Hundreds of enemy ships, organized and coordinated, moved like a deadly cloud toward the colony. Nathan stood beside her, calm as ever. His dark hair blew in the wind and his eyes, sharp and calculating, took in every detail. "They are more organized than before," he said. "But they don't know what we've learned. Humans adapt. We will use their own assumptions against them." Lyra nodded. She felt a surge of confidence. She had trained with Nathan for weeks, learning the human way of thinking, moving, and fighting. Now it was time to put everything into practice. Inside the colony, soldiers prepared defenses under Lyra's guidance. She moved among them, giving instructions, adjusting formations, and coordinating resources. The Andari soldiers were skilled, but many were hesitant, unsure of the new tactics she was introducing. Nathan observed quietly. "Trust is key," he said. "If they don't believe in the plan, it won't work. Show them confidence. Lead by example." Lyra squared her shoulders. "Then I will lead." The enemy fleet entered the planet's orbit, and a series of blaster fire streaked toward the colony. Alarms blared. Civilians ran for cover. The first wave of raiders landed, trying to take advantage of the chaos. Lyra and Nathan moved swiftly. Using human-inspired tactics, they divided the soldiers into small squads, each covering a specific section of the colony. Traps and barricades slowed the enemy's advance, while hidden weapons cut down attackers before they could reach civilians. "Remember what I taught you," Nathan shouted. "Anticipate, adapt, and move. Don't wait for them to make the first mistake. Force them to react." Lyra led a squad through the streets using debris as cover, positioning soldiers strategically and making split-second decisions. She noticed a group of raiders attempting to flank the main defensive line. Without hesitation, she directed a counterattack, using the terrain to her advantage. The raiders were caught off guard and quickly neutralized. Nathan moved through the battlefield like a shadow. He rescued trapped civilians, guided soldiers, and fought with precision. Lyra marveled at his ability to stay calm amidst chaos. Every move he made inspired confidence in those around him. The main enemy commander finally appeared, a massive alien brute clad in reinforced armor, commanding the largest group of raiders. Lyra's heart raced. This was the challenge she had been preparing for. The enemy had expected Andari rigidity and predictable tactics. They were about to learn the human way of combat. "Follow me," Nathan said. "We face him together." They moved quickly through narrow alleys, using cover and stealth. Lyra felt fear, but it was tempered by training and preparation. She trusted Nathan, and she trusted herself. The commander spotted them. His roar echoed through the streets as he charged, swinging a massive weapon. Lyra dodged instinctively, striking with calculated force. Nathan was beside her, moving fluidly, disarming attackers and creating openings. "Use the environment," Nathan shouted. Lyra's eyes scanned quickly. She noticed a cluster of power conduits overhead. With a calculated strike, she triggered an explosion that stunned the enemy force. Nathan seized the opportunity, striking with precision. The commander faltered, surprised by their ingenuity. The battle intensified. Lyra coordinated her soldiers, anticipating enemy moves, adapting tactics on the fly, and taking risks she never would have in the palace. Nathan's training had given her confidence and clarity. She realized that strength alone was not enough. Strategy, speed, and adaptability mattered just as much. Hours passed, but the tide of battle began to turn. Civilians were safe, raiders were falling back, and the main commander was increasingly disoriented. Lyra could feel the energy of her soldiers rising. They had seen the results of human-inspired tactics firsthand. Finally, Lyra faced the commander directly. He swung his massive weapon, but she dodged, striking at weak points he had not protected. Nathan joined her, attacking from another angle. The commander tried to adapt, but the combination of Andari discipline and human ingenuity overwhelmed him. With a final coordinated strike, they defeated him. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader defeated, retreated. The colony was saved. Civilians cheered, soldiers saluted, and for the first time the Andari truly understood the power of combining human innovation with their own strength. Lyra stood amid the ruins, breathing heavily, but smiling. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and chaos, and emerged victorious. Nathan approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did well," he said. "You led. You adapted. That is what humans, and leaders, do." Lyra's eyes shone. "We did it together. You showed me the way and we used it to save my people." Nathan nodded. "Humans survive because we fight together, think together, and adapt together. You've learned that well. Others will follow your example." Word of the victory spread quickly through the colonies and back to the Andari Empire. Soldiers and citizens alike were inspired by the success. They began to see humans not as myths but as allies, teachers, and symbols of courage. Back at the temporary command center, Lyra and Nathan reviewed the battle. Lyra analyzed what worked, what failed, and what could be improved. She realized that leadership was not about commanding from a throne. It was about understanding, adapting, and inspiring others. Nathan studied her thoughtfully. "You've changed in just a few weeks. Humans can be teachers, yes, but you've learned quickly. You think differently now. You lead differently. That is rare." Lyra smiled faintly. "I have learned from the best, and I have seen what is possible when humans and Andari work together." Nathan chuckled. "Humans can surprise even the best of empires. But remember, this was only one battle. The galaxy is full of challenges. You'll need to keep learning, adapting, and leading." Lyra nodded. She understood. The victory was meaningful, but it was not the end. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, discoveries, and mysteries. And humans, like Nathan, were a reminder of what could be achieved when courage, adaptability, and teamwork came together. That evening, as the colony celebrated, Lyra stood on the ridge, looking at the stars. She thought of her people, her home, and the lessons she had learned. Humans were not myths. They were real, extraordinary, and a force for change in the galaxy. She had seen their strength firsthand, and she knew that the future of her people would be stronger because of it. Nathan joined her, watching the celebrations below. "Your people will remember this day," he said. "Not just because of victory, but because of leadership. You inspired them to see beyond fear, beyond assumptions. That is the human way, and now, your way too." Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of purpose she had never known in the palace. "I will continue learning. I will continue leading. My people deserve that, and so do you, for showing me the way." Nathan nodded. "Then the next challenge will be even greater. But I trust you. Humans face the unknown all the time, and so will you." As night deepened and stars sparkled above, Lyra felt a quiet determination. The battle had been won, but the war for the borders, for the colonies, and for the future of her people was far from over. She had discovered a new way of thinking, a new way of leading, and a new respect for humans. And she knew that with Nathan and the lessons of the human way, there was no challenge they could not face. The galaxy was dangerous, vast, and unpredictable. But Princess Lyra, guided by courage, intelligence, and the human way, was ready to face it head-on. The Andari Empire's capital gleamed in the morning sun, its towers rising like crystal spires above the sprawling city. Inside the palace, Princess Lyra moved through the halls with a purpose she had never known before. She had returned from the border colonies, bringing with her the lessons of the human way and the proof that humans were more than legends. They were allies, teachers, and symbols of courage. Lyra's advisors whispered among themselves. Many were wary of her new methods, skeptical of the humans she had spent time with, and uneasy about the changes she suggested. But Lyra paid little attention. She had seen the difference firsthand. How human strategy, adaptability, and courage had saved entire colonies. Now, it was time to bring that knowledge to the Empire itself. Nathan followed closely behind, his calm presence a reassurance. Though he was a visitor from another world, his guidance had transformed Lyra from a cautious princess into a confident leader. Together they approached the council chamber where Emperor Kale and his advisors waited. "Your Highness," Kale said, his voice carrying authority but tinged with curiosity. "You have returned from the border colonies. And the humans. Have they proven themselves true?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, Father. Humans are real and they are extraordinary. They think, adapt, and act in ways we can learn from. I have trained with one of them, Captain Nathan, and he has taught me strategies that save the colonies. We can use these methods to strengthen the Empire." The council murmured among themselves. Some were skeptical, others intrigued. One advisor, General Tarek, spoke cautiously. "Princess, we respect your judgment, but humans are unknown. They may be unpredictable. Can we trust them with our Empire's safety?" Lyra met his gaze firmly. "Trust is earned through action, not fear. I have seen what humans can do. I have fought alongside one. He is not just a warrior. He is a teacher, a strategist, and a leader. The Empire will be stronger if we embrace their knowledge rather than fear it." Kyle studied his daughter, seeing determination in her eyes. He nodded slowly. "Very well. We will give humans a chance, under your guidance. But we proceed carefully. The Empire cannot afford mistakes." Lyra felt a surge of pride. Her father's support meant that change was possible. She turned to Nathan. "Are you ready?" Nathan nodded. "Humans face danger every day. This is just another challenge." The next weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Lyra and Nathan worked together, training Andari soldiers in human-inspired tactics. They emphasized flexibility, observation, and quick decision-making. Soldiers learned to adapt, to anticipate enemy moves, and to work in small, coordinated teams. Lyra herself trained relentlessly, practicing both combat and strategy. She became a model for her people, showing them that tradition and innovation could coexist. Nathan guided her, correcting mistakes, teaching patience, and encouraging creativity. Slowly, the soldiers began to trust the new methods. Success in training missions built confidence, and the once skeptical council members began to see the value of human ingenuity. But the true test came sooner than anyone expected. Reports arrived of a large alien fleet moving toward the Empire's borders. This force was larger, better equipped, and more ruthless than any Lyra had faced before. The colonies she had helped defend were just the beginning. Now the safety of the capital itself was at stake. Lyra called a council meeting. "We have no time for fear," she said, standing tall before the advisors and generals. "The Empire faces a threat unlike any before. But we have the advantage of knowledge, human strategy, combined with Andari strength. We will not falter. We will defend our people and our way of life." General Tarek frowned but said nothing. Lyra knew it would take more than words to convince the soldiers. She needed action. On the day of the battle, the capital's sky was filled with enemy warships, their weapons ready to strike. Lyra and Nathan coordinated the defense from a central command hub, their eyes scanning holographic displays of the battlefield. Civilians were evacuated to safe zones and the army prepared for the enemy's advance. Nathan studied the incoming fleet. "They expect a predictable defense," he said. "They underestimate creativity. We will use that against them." Lyra nodded, her mind racing through the plans they had prepared. She divided the soldiers into specialized squads, each with a clear objective. Some would defend the walls, others would strike the enemy's supply lines, and a small team would use advanced tactics to disrupt communication and coordination among the alien forces. The first wave of enemy ships opened fire, but the defenses held. Lyra moved among the soldiers, giving instructions and encouragement. She had learned from Nathan that leadership was not just issuing orders. It was inspiring confidence, showing calm, and leading by example. The battle intensified. Lyra personally led a squad through the outer defenses using traps, ambushes, and improvisation to slow the enemy's advance. Soldiers under her command began to mirror her adaptability, moving with precision and creativity. Nathan moved beside her, directing attacks and coordinating teams with calm efficiency. Hours passed, and the tide of battle began to turn. Enemy forces were caught off guard by the combination of Andari discipline and human ingenuity. Lyra used every lesson she had learned, anticipation, adaptation, and decisive action, to lead her people. Civilians and soldiers alike watched in awe as their princess demonstrated courage and skill beyond her years. Finally, Lyra faced the enemy commander, the same one who had been responsible for the border raids, now leading the main assault. He towered over her, armored and armed, expecting Andari predictability. Lyra smiled faintly. "You underestimate us," she said calmly. The battle was fierce. The commander attacked with brute force, but Lyra anticipated every move. Using a combination of strategy and improvisation, she exploited weaknesses in his attacks. Nathan struck from another angle, creating openings and forcing the commander into defensive positions. Together, they outmaneuvered him, their coordination seamless despite coming from different worlds. With a final, calculated strike, Lyra and Nathan defeated the commander. His forces, seeing their leader fall, retreated in confusion and disarray. The Empire's capital was saved, the people cheered, soldiers saluted, and Lyra stood tall, breathing heavily but triumphant. She had led her people through danger, combining Andari discipline with human ingenuity to achieve victory. Nathan approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "You led, adapted, and inspired. That is what humans do, and now what you do." Lyra smiled. "We did it together. You taught me, but my people fought bravely as well. Humans are extraordinary, but so are Andari when we learn and adapt." In the following weeks, the Empire began to change. Military training incorporated human-inspired tactics, emphasizing flexibility, observation, and coordination. Advisors began to see the value of blending tradition with innovation. Lyra became a symbol of leadership, courage, and open-mindedness. Nathan was offered an honorary position as a military advisor and ambassador. He accepted, not for prestige, but to continue teaching, guiding, and fostering collaboration between humans and Andari. His presence became a bridge between worlds, demonstrating the power of cooperation and mutual respect. Lyra often stood on the palace balcony at night, looking at the stars. She thought of the humans she had learned from, the battles she had faced, and the lessons she had absorbed. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges, dangers, and mysteries. But she knew now that with courage, adaptability, and collaboration, no obstacle was insurmountable. The humans had proven themselves real, capable, and extraordinary. They had inspired not only Lyra but her people as well. The Andari Empire had entered a new era, a time of cooperation, learning, and strength. Lyra felt a deep sense of purpose. She would continue to lead, to learn, and to inspire her people. And Nathan, a human from a distant star, would continue to teach, guide, and fight beside them. Together, they had shown that courage, ingenuity, and unity could overcome any threat. As the first stars appeared in the sky, Lyra realized something profound. Legends could be true, myths could inspire, but real greatness came from learning, adapting, and working together. Humans were not just myths, they were real, extraordinary, and a force that could shape the galaxy.